Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to be a part of the Whimsy Stamps Slimline Hop, and I'll talk more about the hop a little bit later. But for my card, I decided to do a Slimline Easel card, and the products that I'll be using are Best Fishes, the Best Fishes Sentiment Set, the Lots of Dots stamp, the Slimline Card Builder die, and the Slimline Pillows die. So to create this card, you will need a piece of cardstock that measures 8.5 by 7. That'll be your card base. A strip of cardstock that measures 8.25 by 1/2 inch, and that'll be the stopper for the easel. And 3 pieces of cardstock that measures 8.5 by 3.5. To create the card base, you'll start with the 7 by 8.5 inch cardstock in a scoreboard with the 7-inch side up at the top. Then you score at 1 3/4 inches and 3.5 inches. Once the scoring is done, you want to make sure that you fold on those score lines and burnish really well with a bone folder. The small flap there is actually going to end up being a mountain fold by the time all is said and done. That's also the piece that's going to rest up against the stopper so that the card will stay in that easel position. So that the stopper wasn't just a plain white strip of cardstock on the inside, I decided to stamp the little fish and starfish from the Best Fishes Sentiment set across that strip of cardstock using Catherine Pooler's Fiesta Blue ink. Next, I took one of the pieces that measures 8.5 by 3.5 and I did a little bit of ink blending with a makeup blending brush. I started out with All That Jazz ink. Then I added in a little bit of the Fiesta Blue and finally Suede Shoes. I'll make sure to have all of the measurements and all of the products that I used listed in the description box below. So while I finish up the ink blending, I'll talk about the hop. And actually there are 2 hops going on, one here on YouTube and one over on Instagram. So make sure you check both of them out. Anyway, the person who is next in line for the video hop is linked in the description box below. There is also a giveaway for 2 $25 gift certificates to whimsystamps.com. One is for the Instagram hop and one is for the video hop. To be entered into the giveaway, all you have to do is leave a comment on each of the videos and a comment on each of the participants over on Instagram as well. Make sure you leave your comment no later than August 31st at midnight, and the winners will be announced on September 2nd, and there's more information about the giveaway and how to claim your prize in the description box as well. Once I was done with the ink blending, I spritzed a little bit of water on that panel just to get the water droplet look. Then I put that piece of cardstock into my MISTI so I could stamp the Lots of Dots stamp on top of the ink blended background. And for this, I used a mint green ink, and I stamped the first row of dots, and then I scooched my cardstock down. And when I closed the lid and pressed down on the stamp, I didn't press hard enough, so I didn't get a full impression, and I'm thinking I did not think this through very well. So I closed it again and I pressed it down, and my cardstock got a little bit bent, but eventually it does straighten itself out. So then I turned the cardstock around and I stamped the bottom part of that panel, and now I have this stripe in the middle, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to fix that. So I just grabbed a piece of scratch paper and I covered up the top part of the panel. Then I only inked a little bit of the stamp, and when I stamped it down, it worked perfectly. There was a little bit of an overlap, but I wasn't too worried about that because I knew that my die cut panel would eventually be going on top of that. I ran the ink blended panel as well as one of the other white pieces of cardstock through my die cut machine with the Slimline Card Builder die, and I cut the white piece of cardstock to cover the back of the ink blended panel because it did get a little bit messy. I had run the third white piece of cardstock that measures 3.5 by 8.5 through my Gemini with the Slimline Pillows die, and I put that in my MISTI with the ink blended panel underneath that so I would know where to stamp my sentiment. I stamped my sentiment using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Now this particular stamp, it reads Birthday Fishes. It comes as one long stamp, but I wanted to have it stacked inside that oval, so I just cut the stamp in half. Then I wanted to stamp on the inside of my card, and this is where the strip with the fish and the starfish come into play. I used it as a guide and just used a pencil to draw a line underneath that so I would know where I needed to stamp my sentiment. I put my card base into my Misty, and I lined up the sentiment that reads "Eat Cake," closed the Misty door, and then I stamped that down also with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I set my card base aside, and then I adhered the Slimline Pillows die cut on top of my ink blended bubble stamped piece of cardstock. By the way, did you notice that the main die from the Slimline Card Builder die is the exact same size as the Slimline Pillow dies? So lining them up and stacking them is really easy. Anyway, moving right along, I did put a piece of foam tape on the back of my stopper piece and adhered that to the inside of the card. And I could still see my little pencil mark, so that's how I knew where to put it. And here you can see how the easel mechanism works once that first score line, the mountain fold, is butted up against that stopper piece. In the interest of time, I did all of my Copic coloring off camera, but I will have all of the markers that I used listed in the description box below, as well as over on my blog. I did put foam tape on the back of each of those images so that they would be popped up from the front of the card. And I laid them down, but I didn't press down until I was happy with their placement. And once I was, that's when I pressed down so that they would stay in place. Now this next part is very important. When you go to adhere your card panel to your card base, you only want to put adhesive on the bottom part of that card, not even quite 1/3 of the way. If you put glue any higher, it won't sit properly when you open it up for the easel. I found it easier to adhere the main front panel if I had the card totally opened up. That way it was easier for me to center that on the front of the card. To finish it up, I used my Wink of Stella glitter pen to add a little bit of sparkle here and there, and then I came in with a white gel pen to go over the teeth on the bluefish just so they stood out a little bit more. Here's one last look on how it works once you fold up that top piece and it leans up against that strip. And you can see my cardstock is still a little bit wavy from going through my Gemini. I have since put it underneath a stack of books and it did flatten out perfectly. Anyway, thanks again for joining me today. Don't forget to click on the link in the description box below to head on over to the next participant in the hop. And remember, to be entered into the giveaway, comments need to be left no later than August 31st. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.